just showing you what I had to do here, what I did do. And I don't know that this is going to work yet. I just am, I was sick of fighting the shock here because there's just no room for hands back here. I mean, like I said, small child, a woman with very small hands, maybe. But a guy like me, and I don't think I've got that big hands, but it is really cramped when you put this light here to get back there and reach those bolts. There's just no room in here. And I can't even really show you the bolts because of where they're at. So what I did is I removed the shock from the top. And I just loosened that and unbolted it. I guess right now I've got the weight on the motorcycle, the wheel is down. But it's lifted up from underneath. So that's what I did to try and get this done. It gives you just enough room, because the one thing I thought, well, I'll pull it out this way. You can't even do that. Because even if you did get it back that way, you wouldn't be able to get it back in once this light is in place, unless you wanted to take the screws out of the light and remove the fixture. I really don't know. Maybe maybe I should have looked at a way to take the fixture apart and bolt it in, and then put the fixture back in. Put the fittings back on the fixture. I have no idea. Maybe that would have made more sense to remove these and remove this and then do the bolts and put it all back together that way. I don't know. I'm going to see on the next one. Maybe that'll be easier. But that's what I had to do for now. Not that I had to do it, but I removed the shock tower because this top bolt, I couldn't get it in there right. And I started going at it twice, and I really started stripping it out. So now, unfortunately, just the way it is, since I started stripping it, I reversed it, put the lock nut on the wrong side, which isn't the way to do it. I just put Loctite on there to hopefully keep it in place. But I had to put the nylock on the wrong side of the bolt just to be able to run threads through there. Otherwise, I would have stripped the whole damn thing out. Obviously, I don't want that because I don't know where to replace that thing at. And there had been no other way to do it because there is not room to get in there, hold that in place, and run a bolt through the other side. It's just impossible the way this is designed. You have to have that nylock nut or nut inside that little plastic piece. And I suppose a person could figure something out, but I don't know what. So anyway, that's what I've had to do, is remove the shock tower to get the light. I'm going to finish tightening it down. As you can see, it's still loose. I'm going to finish tightening it down, and then I'll record again when I get the shock tower back in place and let you know how that was. Alright. Unfortunately, still at it. What I've done now is removed the fog light from this part of the housing. I see now that's the way to do it. So forget everything else. Remove this part of the fog light. This is the light assembly itself. There's 3 bolts, 10 millimeter. I go through here into this metal bracket, metal bracket into the housing. Just remove this from this. You got easy access to these bolts, so you can easily get a wrench on there, not like I was struggling with before. Because once I had this in place, now I couldn't get my shock back in place. It was just, my shock was, I couldn't get in here to get the bolt in with my hands, because it was just like I said, with that whole housing in there, you have this one little space. I'll move the camera a little bit. So when you have this housing in there, you have this little space to try and get your fingers through to get to the shock tower. Which, it was fine before this was in, but now that this was in, I couldn't get in there. So you've got, like I said, look at my big hand in there. In that little space. It's just impossible. So, take this on. It'll be easier to install the light, because now you've got to install the light. Now you will need I set up something like this. You know, I've used a torque wrench here, which is not the best idea, but it was just quick to remove them with the universal joint and 10 millimeter. Get that all done. Just to get these bolts out of there, because once you're out of there, they're kind of in there in an awkward spot. But once it's all done, then it's fairly easy and you can work on things. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall my shock tower here. It's still kind of a tight spot, but at least you can work things in there. Where before, now, let's see, once you get it kind of in the right spot, then that all goes in fairly easy. So, socket some wrenches. Which even to put this shock tower together with this light fixture being here, it'd have been a really tight location. I don't know that I would have gotten it done at all. So you kind of almost have to just, like I said, just remove the light fixture itself from this front mounting bracket and call it good. It's just going to be way easier. 3 bolts that come out fairly quick. You know, I don't know why they don't describe that in the instructions. I suppose they want people taking that light fixture apart to hell. If they send you instructions how to put the damn thing in, I think you can figure out how to take that little light fixture apart. You know, and it just makes the job so much easier. By the way, this is a nylock, so once it's tightened down, you don't have to worry about it. It should stay tight, but there's not. Come on. It's not threading on there right now, which is part of the other problem. Speaking of threading on, I think I stripped this nut up top here for light welding because I can't, it just keeps on tightening, so I've stripped it out. It must have, or else, I'm guessing what's actually happening is the nut that's inside this little plastic thing is turning around, it's not staying tight. This is going to be tight enough. The bottom one is tight, and it's holding up top. It's just not as tight as it should be. I'm not going to torque these. I don't know what the torque specs were on them before, but they weren't that terribly tight. I easily loosened them with my hands before, so I'm not going to torque them down. I'm going to try and tighten this just a little bit more now that I've got 3 fingers to it. Hey, nope, I was wrong. It just wasn't tight all the way. Now it is, so I didn't strip it out. It's just fine. It was just such a pain to get in there. It was so hard to get in there. And there again, like I said, now it's much easier to get in there, tighten it down. So, anybody who's watching this, if the Can-Am, if you happen to see this, you might want to add this part in the instructions. Just simply remove the light from this part of the mount. You know, this whole housing assembly, light assembly from the mount. Hope that bulb, I shouldn't be able to, there shouldn't be a bulb there, and that bugs are going to hit that anyway, so it shouldn't damage it. I was just worried about the light because I was touching this, but hell, this is exposed to the elements anyway, so that shouldn't matter. But anyway, as I was saying, if you want to look at this, remove this piece, this from this housing, install that, and then reinstall this. Much easier, and I'll show you here in a second, much easier than screwing around trying to install this housing with the light attached onto the motorcycle when you've got no room to work back there. This is probably how they do it from factory. Why they don't put this in the instructions, I don't know. We will use touch of Loctite on these just because they are, that is going in the middle.